Canada's culture, it is draw influence from its broad range of constituent, nationality and policy act that promotes a just society. As constitutional protected, Canada has placed emphasis on equality and inclusiveness of all its people. The official state policy of multiculturalism is often cited as one of Canada's significant accomplishments and a key distinguishing element of Canadian identity. In Quebec, cultural identity is strong and there is a French Canadian culture that is distinct from English Canadian culture. As a whole, Canada is in theory a culture mosaic of regional ethnic subcultures. Canada's approach to governance emphasizing multiculturalism, which is based on selective immigration, social integration, and suppression of far-right politics, has wide public support. Government policies such as public, publicly funded healthcare, higher taxation to redistribute wealth, the outlawing of capital punishment, strong efforts to eliminate poverty, strict gun control, and social liberal attitude towards women's rights like pregnancy termination and LGBTQ rights and legalized euthanasia and cannabis use are indicators of Canada's political and cultural values. Canadians also identify with the culture's foreign aid policy, peacekeeping roles, the national park system, and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Historically, Canada has been influenced by British, French, and indigenous cultures and traditions through their language, art, and music. Indigenous people continue to influence the Canadian identity. During the 20th century, Canadians with African, Caribbean, and Asian nationalities have added to the Canadian identity and its culture. Canadian humor is an integral part of Canadian identity and is reflected in its folklore, flora, literature, music, art, and media. The primary characteristics of Canadian humor are irony, parody, and satire. Symbols, dames of nature, pioneers, trappers, and traders played an important part in early development of Canadian symbolism. Modern symbols emphasize the country's geography, cold climate, lifestyles, and the Canadianization of traditional European and indigenous symbols. The use of maple leaves as a Canadian symbol dates to the early 18th century. The maple leaf is depicted on Canada's currency and previous flags and on the arms of Canada. Canada's official tannan, known as the maple leaf tannan, has four colors that reflects the color of the maple leaf as it changes through the seasons. Green is the green in the spring, gold to the early autumn, red to the first frost, and brown after falling. The arms of Canada are closely modeled after those of the United Kingdom, with French and distinctive Canadian elements replacing or added to those derived from British version. Other prominent symbols including the national motto, Amari square at them from sea to sea. The sports of ice hockey and lacrosse, the beaver, Canada goose, common loon, Canadian horse, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Canadian Rocky, and more recent the Totten Pole and Inekusuki. Material items such as Canadian beer, maple syrup, Touquet, canoes, Nanaimo bar, and Quebec dish of poutine are defined as uniquely Canadian. Canadian coins feature many of these symbols: the rune of the one USD coin, the arms of Canada on the 50 C piece, and the beaver of the nickel. The penny removed from circulation in 2013 featured the maple leaf. An image of previous monarch Queen Elizabeth II appeared on 20 USD banknote and the obverse of all current Canadian coins. Culture. Canadian literature. Canadian literature is often divided into French and English language literatures, which are rooted in the literary traditions of France and Britain respectively. The earliest Canadian natives were of travel and exploration. This progresses into three major themes that can be found within historically Canadian culture: nature, frontier life, and Canada's position within the world, all three of which tie into the garrison mentality. In recent decades, Canada's literature has been strongly influenced by immigrants from around the world. Since 1980s, Canada's ethnic and cultural diversity have been openly reflected in its literature. By the 1990s, Canadian literature was reviewed as some of the world's best. Numerous Canadian authors have accumulated international literary awards, including novelist, poet, and literary critic Margaret Atwood, who received two Booker Prizes; Nobel laureate Alice Munro, who has been called the best living writer of the short stories in the English; and the Booker Prize recipient Mike Ondaatje, who wrote the novel The English Patient, which was adapted as a film of the same name that won the Academy Award of the Best Picture for the Best Picture. R. M. Montgomery produced a series of children's novels beginning in the 1908 with Anne of Green Gables. Media. Canada's media is highly autonomous, uncensored, diverse, and very regionalized. The Broadcasting Act declared the system should serve to safeguard, enrich, and strengthen the cultural, political, social, and economic fabric of Canada. Canada has a well-developed media creator, but its cultural output, particularly in English films, television shows, and magazines, is often overshadowed by importance for the United States. As a result, the preservation of a distinctly Canadian culture is supported by federal government programs, law, and institutions such as Canadian Broadcasting Corporation (CBC), the National Film Board of Canada, and the Canadian Radio, TV, and Telecommunications Commission. Canadian mass media, both print and digital, and in both official languages, is largely dominated by a handful of corporations. The largest of these corporations is the country's national public broadcaster, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which also plays a significant role in producing domestic culture content, operating its own radio and TV networks in both English and French. In addition to the CBC, some provincial governments offer their own public educational TV broadcast service as well, such as TV Ontario and Télé-Québec. Non-news media content in Canada include film and television is influenced both by local creators as well as by imports from the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and France. In an effort to reduce the amount of foreign-made media, government intervention in television broadcasting can include both regulation of content and public financing. Canadian tax law limits foreign competition in magazine advertising. Visual arts. Art in Canada is marked by thousands of years of habitation by its indigenous people. Historically, the Catholic Church was the primary patron of art in New France and early Canada, especially Quebec, and in late times, artist has combined the British, French, indigenous, and American artistic traditions, at times embracing European styles while working to promote nationalism. The culture of Canadian art reflects these diverse origins as artists have taken their traditions and adopted those influences to reflect the reality of their lives in Canada. The Canadian government has played a role in the development of Canadian culture through the Department of Canadian Heritage by giving grants to arts galleries, as well as establishing a funding art school and colleges across the country, and through the Canadian Council of the Arts, established in 1957, the National Public Arts Fund, helping artists, art galleries, and periodicals, and thus contributing to the development of Canada's cultural works. Since the 1950s, works of Inuit art have been given as a gift to foreign dignitaries by the Canadian government. Canadian visual arts have been dominated by figures such as a painter Tom Thomson and a group of seven. The latter were painters with a nationalist and idealist focus, who first exhibited their distinctive works in May 1920. Though referred to as having seven members, five artists, Ronnie Harris, A.Y. Jackson, Arthur Lismer, MacDonald J.E.H., and Frederick Valley, were responsible for articulating the group's ideas. They were joined briefly by Frank Johnston and commercial artist Franklin Carmichael. A.G. Carson became part of the group in 1926. Associated with the group was another prominent Canadian artist, Emile Carr, known for her landscapes and portraits of the indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest coast. Music. Canadian music reflects a variety of regional scenes. Canada has developed a vast music infrastructure such that includes church halls, chamber halls, conservatories, academies, performing arts centers, recording company, radio stations, and television music video channel. Government support programs such as the Canada Music Fund assist a wide range of musicians and entrepreneurs who create produce and market original and diverse Canadian music. The Canadian music industry is the sixth largest in the world, producing internationally renowned composers, musicians, and assemblers. Assembles music broadcasting in the country is regulated by the CRTC, the Canadian Academy of Recording Arts and Science presents Canada's Music Industry Awards, the Juno Awards, which were first awarded in 1970s. The Canadian Music Hall of Fame, established in 1976, honors Canadian musicians for their lifetime achievements. Patriotic music in Canada dates back over 200 years as a distinct category from British patriotism, preceding Canadian Confederation by over 50 years. The earliest work of patriotic music in Canada, The Bold Canadian, was written in 1812. The Maple Leaf Forever, written in 1866, was a popular patriotic song throughout English Canada and for many years served as an official national anthem. The official national anthem, "O Canada," was originally commissioned by Lieutenant Governor of Quebec Theodore Robitaille for the 1880 St. Baptist Day ceremony and was officially adopted in 1890. In 1980, Calixa Navarre wrote the music, which was a setting of a patriotic poem composed by the poet and judge Sir Adolphe Basile Rotier. The text was originally only in French before it was adapted into English in 1906. Sports. The roots of organized sports in Canada dates back in the 1770s, culminating in the development and popularization of the major professional games of ice hockey, lacrosse, curling, basketball, baseball, association football, and Canadian football. Canada's official national sports are ice hockey and lacrosse. Other sports such as volleyball, skiing, cycling, swimming, badminton, tennis, bowling, and the study of martial arts are all widely enjoyed at the youth and amateur level. Great achievements in Canadian sports are recognized by Canadian Sport Hall of Fame, while the Roy Marshall Trophy is awarded annually to the Canada's top athletes by a panel of journalists. There are numerous other sports Hall of Fame in Canada, such as Hockey Hall of Fame. Canada shares several major professional sports leagues with the United States. Canadian team is in this league include 7 franchises in the National Hockey League, as well as the Major League Soccer teams and other teams in each of Major League Baseball and National Basketball Association. Other popular professional competitions including Canada Football League, National Lacrosse League, the Canadian Premier League, and previous curling tournaments sanctioned and organized by Curling Canada. Canada has enjoyed success both at Winter Olympics and at Summer Olympics, though particularly the Winter Games as a winter sports nation and has hosted several high-profile international sporting events such as 1976 Summer Olympics and 1988 Winter Olympics, the 2010 Winter Olympics, and 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup. Most recently, Canada hosted the 2015 Pan American Games and the 2015 Pan American Games in Toronto, the former being one of the largest sporting events hosted by the country. The country is scheduled to host the 2026 FIFA World Cup alongside Mexico and the United States. Thank you very much, and let's enjoy more about the world's history, geography, and adventure. See you in other upcoming videos. Watch more about Canada and share what you have so that we can grow in all ways. Thank you and see you soon.